and the balcony she used to signal me. They say apartments teach you the shape of your loneliness. Mine had a narrow balcony that overlooked a courtyard of potted trees and arguments. I used to stand out there late, pretending to smoke, watching lives happen in rectangles. That is where I first saw Lena, barefoot, in a silk robe the color of the inside of a fig, leaning over her railing, tapping a spoon against a glass in an impatient, delicate rhythm. She wasn't calling for me. She was warning someone. My name is Aaron. I renovate buildings for people who want their history to look more expensive. I know how to move walls without starting fights and how to make a corridor forget where a door used to be. One floor below me, a unit had stayed empty for months behind butcher paper and the promise of a mysterious private club. Then one Tuesday, delivery trucks arrived like gossip. Furniture went in that looked allergic to gravity. A bit later, Lena arrived, heels in one hand, phone in the other, hair pinned like a weapon pretending to be decoration. She noticed me first, not because I'm hard to miss, I'm not, but because she noticed everything. She raised her glass as if to say, "Hello, stranger who sees too much," and then she smiled as if seeing too much could be forgiven. 2 days later, I found a hand-delivered note under my door. "Come downstairs at 7. Dress like you've been somewhere better." That was the first lie. I hadn't been anywhere better, but I owned a jacket that could pretend. Her private club was less a club than a room that wanted to be whispered about. By 8, the butcher paper was gone, and the entry smelled like lemons and cashmere. A pianist massaged a scale. On the wall hung photographs of people who owed the camera a favor. Lena met me at the threshold as if I were expected. "You're Aaron," she said, and the syllables behaved for her the way they don't for me. "You build quiet into loud spaces." "That's the job," I said. "I need someone to build quiet into this one," she said. "Not soundproofing, discretion." She guided me through the room, explaining nothing and everything. "It's a listening bar," she said. "No screens. Vinyl, conversation, drinks that don't introduce themselves. People come here to dress their regrets in better lighting." "Who's asking for discretion?" I asked. "Me," she said, "and the people who'll pretend not to be asking." At a corner table sat a man who had been born with a glass in his hand. Older, immaculate, the kind of handsome that hires other people to age for him. He and Lena exchanged a glance that had a history. He nodded to me almost kindly and went back to letting the room orbit him. "My partner," Lena said. "Semyon. He calls himself an investor when he wants to be boring and a producer when he wants to be dangerous." "And what do you call yourself?" I asked. "An exit strategy with good posture," she said. The build-out was clever, hidden niches, a bar that bowed its head so you'd lean in, a back office disguised as a coat closet. But the real architecture was ritual. As night deepened, familiar strangers arrived. A painter who had learned to price his sadness. A councilwoman whose laughter had sponsors. A journeyman striker from a club that didn't sign autographs. Their eyes tracked Lena as if she were a demonstration of physics. Semyon touched her only with his gaze. It was possessive, efficient. I walked the perimeter and found the seams. A service door near the sound booth that opened to a private corridor not on the plans. An inner balcony overlooking the alley, shielded by ivy wired to a motion sensor. A second, deeper coat closet with hangers that never held coats. Quiet had already been built into the place. It just needed a friend. Lena poured me a drink and didn't ask if I wanted it. "Make me something I can lock in 5 seconds without anyone noticing," she said. "Make me a way to leave that looks like staying." "From whom?" I said. "To whom?" "From myself," she said lightly. "To a future in which I'm not a small clause in a man's biography." We met again 3 times that week, always in the afternoon before the bar opened. the room smelling of wood polish and promised money. When she wasn't explaining where she wanted door contacts, she told me a story in pieces so small they might have been garnish. She ran the club on paper. Semyon ran everything that cast a shadow. He had rescued her from a dead restaurant job and given her a book of rules too expensive to ignore. He never yelled. He never had to. When the club opened, important people perched and told truths they designed to be overheard. When it closed, Semyon counted cash with the delicate intimacy of confession. The second lie was how easily I believed I was above such gravity. The third lie was thinking I could help Lena without wanting her. I hid magnets in the skirting and tucked a camera above the drinks shelf at an angle that saw pockets but not faces. In the back office, I installed a relay you could trip with the weight of a perfume bottle. It would drop the deadbolt on a private stairwell and cut power to the external lock on the alley door. I ran a cable under the balcony planter and up to her apartment above, invisible until you listened for it, so she could lift the windowsill and throw the building a silent party line only she and I would ever RSVP to. "Show me," she said on the third afternoon, and I did. She had the quick hands of someone who had learned to change her mind in one motion. She practiced arming the office, disarming the alley, pivoting the ledger shelf to reach the safe. Her ring, thin gold, barely there, flashed when she turned the dial. She caught me noticing. "It's not his," she said. "It's mine, from a life when the things I loved were allowed to be inexpensive." We stayed close a breath too long. She stepped back, then forward again, almost imperceptibly, as if inviting me to erase the space. I didn't. The fourth lie was that I didn't want to. That night the painter got drunk enough to tell the councilwoman what her husband said about her. The striker danced with his own reflection. Semyon watched the room the way men watch stocks. Halfway through the second set, Lena stepped out to the balcony and tapped a spoon against a glass, that same crisp rhythm I'd heard before, and someone arrived at the alley door without ringing. I checked the camera. A courier. A beige envelope. No words, just an exchange like a blood type. The next morning, a tabloid site posted photos of the striker with a woman who was not his agent. The photos were flattering in the way that ruins careers gracefully. The listening bar was not in the background, but the ivy on the alley wall was. Semyon's eyes were greenhouse glass all day. He didn't smile at Lena. He said he trusted her. It sounded like an accusation dressed for church. I asked her later whose courier it was. "Ours," she said. "We keep the dangerous truths in motion so they don't settle in one place and rot." "And this time?" I asked. "This time someone else taught us our own trick." That night I stayed late, checking sensors, pretending busyness. The club thinned into people who weren't ready to be alone. Semyon took a call outside and didn't return for 10 minutes. When he came back, the skin at his temple was tight. He thanked the DJ, shook a politician's hand too firmly, and drifted into the office with a slowness that felt like a thought. Lena followed. I shouldn't have, but I did. Through the coat closet, past the ledger shelf to where the relay hid. I stopped in the corridor and listened. His voice was low, too low, gentle like wind before you realize it's a storm. Hers was steady like a person standing still on a moving train. "I've covered for you," he said. "I didn't ask you to," she said. "I invest in people," he said. "They pay me back with loyalty." "Loyalty isn't a receipt," she said. "It's a choice. If you take it, it becomes something else." There was a soft sound then, metal touching wood, and a longer sound, the kind a body makes when it refuses to soften. I pushed the relay with the perfume. The deadbolt fell like a verdict. The office lock clicked. Silence smudged. I knocked and entered without hesitation because hesitation is how people go missing. Semyon stood a half step from Lena, a paperweight in his hand like an artifact from an old war. He smiled at me like a host in a crisis. "Aaron," he said, "there you are. We were just discussing timelines." "I need the ledger," I lied, moving to the shelf. I put a palm on it, felt the hinge. "A supplier wants his numbers before dawn." "Of course," he said. Lena looked at me with the strangest gratitude, one that fit both rescues and betrayals. I shifted the shelf, made a show of thumbing pages, blocked his angle to her wrist. Her ring was turned inward now, an old habit of women who don't want strangers to know who else they are. "New policy," he said, as if thinking aloud. "No phones behind the bar, no bags in the office. Everyone is proud of their honesty until they need a pocket." He left us with his smile. The door closed. I released the breath I'd held like I'd been saving it for someone else. Lena leaned against the safe and laughed once, without joy. "You shouldn't be in this room with me," she said. "I'm rarely where I should be," I said. She took my hand and placed it on the wood trim where the relay hid, as if to remind me that our complicity had hardware. Then she slid closer and I didn't move back. The kiss was careful because it had to be, and hot because it wanted to be. My palm found the small of her back with a map's certainty. Her fingers found my jaw with a claim's lightness. We stayed within the boundaries the platform would accept and the night would forgive, but we didn't pretend our bodies were polite. When we stepped apart, the air learned how to vibrate without music. The next day, the councilwoman's husband filed for a temporary leave from his own career, citing private matters. The striker posted a video of himself apologizing to an ocean. The tabloid site ran a follow-up about the listening bar being a fixer's playground. Semyon summoned me like a repairman. "One of our contacts is leaking," he said, looking out the window as if the view owed him. "Someone wants me rattled, you know who." "I don't," I said, which was true if you narrowed the definition of no until it squeaked. "But I know who benefits." "Who?" "Anyone who wants your friends to become your weapons," I said. He rubbed his temple with the hand that had held the paperweight. "No new doors," he said. "No new holes. We tighten. We make it expensive to be curious." After he left, Lena slipped into the office and closed the door with chosen gentleness. "He has a folder," she whispered. "On the striker, on the councilwoman, on me." "What's in yours?" I asked. "Emails, photos, a lease to an apartment I don't live in," she said. "He'll burn anyone who leaves." "Then we blow the folder into snow," I said. "How?" "The safe," I said. "It's not in there," she said. "That's for cash and petty gods. The folder is in a box in his car, which lives in a garage that lives under a security camera pointed at boredom." I looked at her. She looked back like she'd already decided how to feel about what I would say next. "We make boredom noisier," I said. "Tonight, when he goes out to buy quiet from whoever sells it to him, I trigger the balcony line. He checks the Ivy sensor. You act annoyed and ask him to fix the light outside the office. While he is playing superintendent, we take the box from the car." "You know his keys?" she asked. "I know where he keeps them when he thinks nobody's brave," I said, and gestured at the hook inside the office that held a second set of coat hangers. One brass key glittered like a dare. It worked like it shouldn't have. An hour after close, I tripped the balcony wire. The Ivy blinked an error that would eventually send an alert to no one in particular. Semyon cursed like a man who didn't have time to be a handyman. Lena met him with a smile that apologized for the wrong things. He climbed out onto the inner balcony with a flashlight pointed at the wrong vine. I took the key and ghosted to the garage. His car sat smug under the camera. On the wall, a red emergency switch I'd noticed weeks ago without blessing. I flipped it and the lights hiccuped. Cameras love power as much as they love anything. I popped the trunk and found the box exactly where my worst hope said it would be. Inside, folders labeled in a hand too neat for his. L.A.V. Others. I took Lena's, the striker, the councilwoman. I left one, V, because sometimes it's smarter to show restraint than to prove you're thorough. V for a billionaire whose lawyers always put their shoes on before they stand. Back upstairs, Semyon returned to find Lena standing under the office light that flickered now just enough to justify his annoyance. He didn't notice anything missing. He kissed her cheek like an invoice. He left with the look of a man who believes systems love him. On my floor, she handed me the folder without opening it. "Burn it for me," she said. "No," I said, "read it, then decide what you're burning." She read, she decided. We fed the pages to a kitchen sink flame that licked once and turned efficient. We didn't talk. We watched our lives change colors. "What will you do?" I asked. "Leave," she said, "but not without taking something that keeps him from following." "Insurance," I said. "Memory," she said. "He collects it and calls it leverage. I'll collect it and call it proof." The next afternoon, she didn't come to the club. A new manager did, wearing confusion and perfume. Semyon looked at me like I was drywall. He did not smile. The day after that, a story landed in a respectable paper about the tabloid's ownership and a pipeline from a certain fixer's office. The striker's video began to look like choreography. The councilwoman's husband returned to work looking newly devout. Semyon's calls got shorter and louder. I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. The balcony line saved my life. Delete it. I deleted it. I saved it first. Weeks later, I was on my own balcony pretending to water basil I was always forgetting, when Lena stepped out onto a different balcony across the courtyard. A rented place in a building with faded charms and kinder windows. She lifted a glass and didn't tap it. I raised my hand. She touched 2 fingers to her throat like a pledge and let them fall. We still see each other sometimes, in bookshops and corner bars and the spaces between obligations. We keep our heat quiet. We let our honesty speak with an accent. We don't say the names we used to be. On good nights, we remember the way her ring flashed when she turned the dial away from him. On better nights, we forget and build something small enough to hide in a coat pocket and big enough to feel like a country. If you want a verdict, here it is. I didn't fix the world. I built a door for a woman who needed a way out and left it ajar long enough for her to learn the code belonged to her. I am still a man who moves walls for a living. I still cross the lines I draw. The courtyard still collects other people's arguments. The basil still judges me. And some evenings, when light sits on the brick like a promise, I hear a spoon tap a glass in a rhythm that means I'm not alone with my loneliness anymore. And I raise my hand, and the city answers by pretending not to see, which is the kindest thing it knows how to do.